Hi there, this is Pablo, and in this video I'm going to show you how to deploy CPQ data and metadata at the same time. So let's say that I'm a Salesforce developer working on a large Salesforce CPQ project. This project includes changes to different Salesforce products and other CPQ related objects like attributes, custom price rules, etc. It also includes changes to some Apex classes that help us control our CPQ logic. So what I'm going to show you here is how we can deploy both the CPQ data, the products, and my Apex classes to another Salesforce environment. Everything in one go. So I have my two CPQ environments here, development and production. So let's go ahead and click on the deploy tab and then new deployment. For the target environment, I'm going to select CPQ production and let's name this big CPQ project and then create deployment. Now a Salto deployment is based on the differences between the source and the target organization. So what we see here on the element tree is only the elements that are different in these two organizations. So as I said earlier, I want to deploy some of my CPQ configuration objects, and one of them happens to be a configuration attribute. So if I expand this here, I can see that there is a bass guitar attribute that only exists in the source environment and it doesn't exist in the target environment. So let's go ahead and select that. Now I also want to deploy some CPQ Apex classes, so let me search for them here. And here we have this data factory, which is the one that I'm working on. So I'm going to select this here. And that's it. Let's go ahead and click preview plan and deploy this to production. Okay, so now I'm looking at my deployment plan and it appears that there are two problems here. I can see in the skip tab there are two instances that are not going to be deployed. So let's go ahead and click on the CPQ data factory to see what's wrong. So as we can see here, what the error is telling us is that the CPQ data factory contains an unresolved reference to the Apex class CPQ code helper. And that's because if I go to my Apex class here, I can see that the CPQ data factory actually has a reference to CPQ code helper, which I did not include in my deployment because, well, I forgot. But the good thing is Salto is telling me that this reference is missing and I cannot deploy the data like this. So I need to go back and add that. Now it turns out that there is a related elements tab here that I didn't notice. And when I click on it, I can see that there is an Apex class that is related to the elements that I selected here. So as I said earlier, I selected the CPQ data factory, but I forgot to include the CPQ code helper. But Salto knows that there's a relationship between those two and is prompting me to select that here. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and see what's the product that is missing. Oh, that's probably the actual product record that the configuration attribute is related to. So let's go ahead and do that as well. And then there is also a product feature that the configuration attribute was related to. So the good thing here is that as I select items here, I can always refresh and see if there are any more items that are related to the items that I just configured. Okay, so let's go back and click on preview plan again. And now this time there are 0 elements on the skip tab and I can see that everything is here. The data factory, the code helper, the configuration attribute, along with the product that I want to deploy. So the cool thing here is that I'm actually deploying both data and metadata at the exact same time, and I didn't have to use any specific configuration to be able to do this. So let's go ahead and now click deploy so that we can deploy both our Apex classes and our data of the product, configuration attribute, and product feature objects. Great, so the deployment has succeeded. Now let's go to my target org and see if the bass guitar product is there. So I'm going to refresh this view of all products and let's search for bass. And there we go. Now if we click on it and we go to the related tab, we can see that the feature is there and the configuration attribute is also there. And that's great. So I was able to deploy this CPQ data. Now, what about the Apex classes? Let's go ahead and go to the developer console, search for CPQ, and there we go. Code Helper and Data Factory. And that's how easy it was for me to deploy both CPQ data and Apex classes in one single deployment.